This video we're going to talk about what area and perimeter are and how we can calculate the area and perimeter of some different shapes, and most particularly the area and perimeter of rectangles. That's what we will be dealing with the most in this class. So first off, in your guided notes, we are going to look at perimeter, and we need to define what perimeter is. So perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape. So around the outside of a shape. Okay, and the best example I can give to you for this is if you watch any sort of cop shows or anything like that, you'll hear the police shout, "Secure the perimeter, secure the perimeter." And they want the rest of their team to make sure that nobody leaves the outside of an area. So they want to secure the outside of a building. The perimeter is the outside of any shape. So if we want to calculate the perimeter, we have to imagine how much distance would we cover in order to walk around the outside of the shape. If you imagine an ant, you are an ant starting at this point on the rectangle. We want to know how much distance would we cover around the outside. Well, if I walked all the way across this side of the rectangle, I would cover 10 centimeters. So I would have to take 10 centimeters, and then the ant would turn and walk this direction. And that is the same length as this side, which is 4 centimeters. And then we would turn and walk this distance, which is the same as the top side. So that is again 10 centimeters. And then we would turn and walk on the outside here, again 4 centimeters. So we would add the 10 centimeters from the top, plus the 4 on the right side, plus the 10 at the bottom, plus the 4 on the left side. And 10 plus 4 plus 10 plus 4 is 28 centimeters. So the distance would be 28 centimeters around the figure. A couple of formulas that you may need to remember or would like to remember to make things easy for perimeter. An equilateral triangle is just a triangle that has the same length on each side. And the perimeter for that would be equal to 3 times the side length. Whatever the side length is that's the same all the way around, we could multiply that by 3 since there's 3 of those same sides. Similarly, for a square, the perimeter of a square is going to be 4 times whatever the side length is. Since it's the same size on every side, then we just need to multiply it by 4. This is the formula that you'll probably see the most often, and I would make sure you put this one to memory. It's for a rectangle, but perimeter of a rectangle is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And I'm not sure why that W is not coming in. 2 times the width. You can see that from our figure here. We had 2 from the length and 2 of the widths. And it doesn't matter which dimension you call the length and which one you call the width. So 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Those are just some special formulas that you may want to remember. Go ahead and do the practice. Pause the video and do the practice for these two, and we'll come back and review how to find the answer. To find the answer for each of these, we just simply need to add up all the sides. So in this first figure, we're going to add 8 plus 3 plus 12 plus 3. Add those up, you should get 26 feet. That is the perimeter of this quadrilateral. For our second figure, I'm going to use the rectangle formula. Perimeter equals 2 times the length, 2 times 15, plus 2 times the width, which is 7. I'm not sure why that's not showing up for us. Let me erase this and try it again. So again, perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. 2 times 15 is 30. 2 times 7 is 14. So our perimeter is 44 yards. Okay? Hopefully you got those correct, whether you added all the sides up or just used the formula. Next, we're going to take a look at area. Area is the amount of space inside of a figure. The amount of space inside the figure. So if we're looking at area, or perimeter is the distance on the outside, area is the amount of space inside of the figure. So if we could break this up into unit squares, so like this is just 1 unit square, I could just count all of these squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and go all the way down and count all of them up. In this case, it would be 24 unit squares. However, we know a quicker way to actually do this is we could multiply this row of 6, and I have 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we could do 6 times 4 to figure out how many squares are there. And to translate that, that would be a side length of 6 and a side length of 4. So we could multiply our length times our width to find out the area of this rectangle. That, again, is going to be an important formula to remember. The area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. These others are nice to remember if you know them, but they are not necessary to remember for this class. The area of a square is just simply the side length squared, because we're still multiplying length times width, but with a square, in this case, they're actually the same length. And for a triangle, the area of a triangle is equal to 1/2 the base times the height. Okay, and we may look at some triangles. You'll definitely get into that in geometry, but that's a nice formula to remember. So if you want to pause your video here and practice these 2 problems and come back and we will talk about the solutions. To find the area of these 2 figures, this first one is just a rectangle, and we know that area is equal to length times width. So we simply have to just plug in those numbers, 11 times 4, and I'll just get that from the length times the width. 11 times 4 is 44. Since this part comes a little bit confusing, since I'm multiplying 1 unit of centimeters times another unit of centimeters, this is actually going to be written as centimeters squared. So 44 centimeters squared. The second problem is a little bit tougher. This is kind of the extension part of it, and we don't have a good formula for finding the area of an L-shaped figure, but anytime you're given an odd shape, try to cut it into multiple rectangles. In this case, if we just draw a line straight across here, as straight as I can make it, then I now have 2 rectangles. I have 1 rectangle here and a second rectangle here, and if I find the area of each of those, then I can just add it together and we will get the total area. So in this case, the area of number 1, let me write that down here, the area of number 1 is equal to the length times the width. Well, the length is 2, the width is 3, so this is just 2 times 3, which is 6. And the area for number 2 is going to be the length. Well, the length is going to be this part plus this part, and that is equal to 2 and 2, so the length is going to be 4 times the width, which is here. So the width is 2, And 4 times 2 is 8. And now we can add those two areas together. 6 plus 8 is 14. And again, that is centimeters squared. This will be the main one. You need to definitely know how to find the area of a rectangle. This will be a good extension. If you're able to do that, that will be kind of the cherry on top. If you have any questions, make sure we address those in class. You ask them or come in for tutoring.